Hello, fictional. Welcome to the What If Issei. Today we are gonna see what if Issei's fate took an interdimensional turn. Part 1. If you end up liking this video, please consider subscribe, so without further ado, let's get into the video. Issei Hyoudou was dead. He knew he was, yes, at some level at least he was aware of this. He had been murdered by his own girlfriend on a date, their first date of all things, right when it was coming to its end. Walking through the park at evening, hand in hand with her, with an actual girl, yes, and then suddenly she turned around and killed him. Not only that, she had suddenly somehow transformed. Black wings grew out of her back, she seemed to become a bit taller, her clothes changed. No, he thought, they vanished and were replaced with a strange but very sexy leather outfit. Well, a small consolation was at least that he was able to see her naked for a few moments in the second while she did transform, Issei said to himself. He remembered the words, the person who had killed him had said this to him, "Will you die for me?" It was kind of fun, like playing house with a little child. The mocking words were still howling through his head. Well, it could have been worse, a very small sarcastic part of him thought. At least she had fun. Who cared about why? How she had casually and coldly commented to him why she did it in words he did not even come close to understand. "Blame God for putting the sacred gear inside you," she had said. What the hell did that even mean? He thought sacred gear, what the hell was that? He had died. Or did he? He asked himself. Issei was dead. When he was looking around right now though, he wasn't even so sure about that last part anymore. He was standing inside a completely empty white room. What was strange, however, was that he couldn't actually make out any real walls. The room just seemed to continue until he couldn't even make out its end anymore. What in the world was this crazy place? He had been dying. He was quite sure about that. But somehow he was still alive. He asked himself. The last he remembered was bleeding out back there in the park, right next to the fountain. And now he was here. Wherever that was. He looked down on himself. The wound was no longer there, he realized. His body was healed. He was pretty well sure, however, that he had a bleeding wound in his chest just a few moments ago. And well, he still had a body. This alone would be strange if he were some kind of ghost, right? Was this heaven? He asked himself for a short moment. But then he should be surprised to be even here, another sarcastic part of him thought. After all, he had been a notorious pervert. He did die, didn't he? "I see you have arrived," a voice greeted him. "And no, this is not heaven. But yes, technically, you died." As Issei turned around, he saw the figure of a young man, maybe 25 or 30 years old by his looks, with dark brown hair, who was about one head taller than him. He was wearing something that looked like a quite ordinary styled grey suit. At least it was what he looked like at the first glance. But something told Issei that this was anything but a normal person. He didn't really understood it himself, but somehow his senses were screaming at him that this guy was all but normal. It told him to either run away or bow down to him. And there was something else. How in the world did this guy know what he had just been thinking? "Who are you? How did you know?" He attempted to ask him the question, but once again the stranger was one step ahead of him. "Who I am?" he replied. "I actually have many names. You can just call me Darian. That is at least the name I am going by currently," he stated. "What is important for you is, I am the one who has brought you here. And to the question, how did I know what you were thinking? Yes, Issei Hyoudou, I have indeed been reading your mind," the man said to him, smiling friendly. What? He just thought. Okay, after girlfriends who suddenly grew wings, stab you to death and then fly away, maybe this should not be surprising him that much. Despite the insane things the man had just told him, he wasn't in any way a threat at all. In fact, his expression was actually comforting. Maybe that was it, he had just lost his mind. Yes, things like Yuma growing wings and killing him, finding himself in a completely white room with a man who claims that he can read your thoughts. That couldn't be true, could it? In reality, he was probably locked up somewhere and in a straitjacket, surrounded by doctors who were trying to find out what was wrong with him, he thought. "No, Issei Hyoudou, you have not gone crazy," the man told him, once again repeating what he was thinking. "All of this here is actually quite real. You're just no longer in your regular world." "Ah ha ha ha," Issei suddenly started to laugh, sounding however quite forced. "This is a dream, right? I am dreaming. Or is all this here some kind of special effect? Are you from one of these TV shows? I see you are confused," he said casually. "That is more than understandable in your situation. First off, let me assure you that nothing will harm you while you are here. And to your questions. Where we are. This here is, as it is called, a provisorical spatial dimension. You could say it is a small gap between realities that my group is using for its purposes." "The what?" Issei wanted to call out, but it became only a quiet whisper. He slowly nodded with his head sheepishly. Of course he understood absolutely nothing. "Maybe I should use other means to convince you," the man said. Suddenly the room around them changed. Instead of being in a wide empty space, they were now standing a few centimeters above the open sea. Or better said, they were hovering right above the water. Issei could hear the waves of the ocean, could feel the wind. It was so real. "Come on, touch it," the man named Darian said, as Issei bowed down and reached his hand out to the surface of the sea that had just appeared where they were standing. He could feel the cold water running through his fingers. "It is," Issei wanted to say. "It is real technically at least," Darian told him. "My power can form this place and whatever I will it becomes reality. I would be capable of even more if I were truly here," he stated. "Truly here but?" Issei questioned. "My physical self is actually in a different universe. The body you see here, like everything else around you, is a manifestation I have created with my mind," he explained. Everything around them now changed back as it was before. The ocean under their feet was once again replaced with the empty white rim. Once again Issei was aghast. "Other universes?" he asked. "Like in the TV shows," the being named Darien acute accent responded with a hint of humor. "Of course." For a moment he grinned and actually had to hold back his laughter. Even the being in front of him had a grin on his face. But then remembered where he was. "Does that mean you are something like a god?" he asked. Given the power he possessed, this question was not so far off. "No," the man replied, "but you could say I and my group are deeply connected to the force you would call God. But that is an explanation for another time. I see that you can barely keep up with the few things I have already told you." "That would be an understatement," Issei thought sarcastically. "I have brought your soul here to make you an offer," the being called Darian said to him. "An offer?" he repeated. "Brought my soul here? As I have told you, you have indeed died," the man continued. "As you have probably figured out, your current body just like mine is just a mental projection. I have formed it so that we can talk easier. Your true body is still lying in the park," he told him calmly. Issei didn't say anything. He had suspected something like that actually. But hearing it from his mouth, Issei only managed to gulp. "I am a guardian, a protector of the multiverse as you could call it," Darian introduced himself. "I am the leader of our group and I want to make you an offer." "An offer?" "Yes, but tell me first, would you like to live again?" he asked. "Of course I would," he replied heatedly. "Who wouldn't? Who wouldn't?" "That is a good question. What if I told you now that your return is to be bound on certain conditions?" "What do you mean with CONDITIONS acute accent?" "Of course I want to return to life. All I want to do is go back and forget that any of this ever happened. If you can bring me back then just do it." "That is exactly what I meant," the man stated. "I fear that the option to go back how things were no longer exist for you." "What do you mean?" Issei asked confused. "What I mean is this, even if you return, do you really think the people who were responsible for your death would just let you continue to live your life like nothing happened?" he questioned. Issei froze. The situation became quickly clear to him. Of course they wouldn't. As soon as they found out that he was still alive, they would come after him again. "Responsible? You mean Yuma?" he asked. "Her and others?" "Devils," was his simple answer. Issei was once again stunned. But at the same time, it was at this point that he truly had enough of it all. "Okay, stop devils," he yelled. "Would you please care to explain to me from the beginning? Don't get me wrong, you seem to be okay guy for a superpowered super being anyway, but first Yuma turns into this whatever she was and stabs me. Then she starts to talking about something called sacred gear, I don't even know what that is, and then you show up and tell me something about mind reading, guardians and other universes." It was all bursting out of him now. All his senses were still somehow telling him that this being could crush him like a bug and that yelling at him was probably not the smartest thing to do. But he just couldn't help himself. "I just don't understand anything anymore," Issei said now more quietly. Ironically, his time here was probably the first time in days that he had not spent most of his mental power on thinking about girls and their breasts. Yet the MAN acute accent who could so easily destroy him if he wanted was only looking at him with a friendly and obviously uneasy expression. Issei couldn't help to think that this guy felt sorry for him. "Okay, he said. Issei was still trying to make sense of all of that. He wasn't even sure when he had suddenly developed a sixth sense for danger. If it was that. "You are right," the man responded then. "I should first explain a few things to you. Like you have probably already figured out by now, your girlfriend Yuma is actually a supernatural being like I am, but different," he stated. "Her real name is Rainer by the way, as we have found out. She is actually a fallen angel to be exact, she is part of a group that resides in this town. But they are by far not the only supernaturals here." "The fallen angel, like in the Christian Bible you mean?" Issei asked him. "Like in fallen from heaven and all that? In a way yes. But I doubt that she or any member of her team have ever actually fallen from heaven. One thing you should know is that there had been a great war several centuries ago between the three most prominent factions, the angels, the fallen angels and the devils." "The Great War?" Issei repeated. "Yes. All three sides had been decimated at its end, and the fallens were in the worst state. Literally only their leaders and a handful of others had been left. So it is most likely that Raynor and the rest of her team had been born in the generations afterwards. Today the three factions are in ceasefire. Or more correctly as it is called today, a Cold War situation. Your hometown Kuo is actually being dominated by the devils. In fact, the girl Rias Gremory that you know from your school is a devil. It was all just too much. Issei's brain was still trying to process all the crazy information that was suddenly being thrown at him. Rias Gremory, a devil. She was in the class above him in high school, for fuck's sake. One of the most popular girls in his school. And what has that all to do with me? He called out now. I am not an angel or a devil or whatever. I am not a member of this damn groups, he practically yelled. So why in the world had Uma-chan suddenly killed me? You have a sacred gear inside of you, came the answer. She had mentioned the term, right? He asked. It is, to put it simply, a weapon created by God. It was created in first line as a defense for humanity from the supernatural. Sacred gears are reincarnating themselves into human beings. That means a small number of humans are born with such a weapon sealed inside their bodies. You're one of them. So that is the reason. I was born with such a weapon inside me, and she killed me just to make sure that I could never by sheer chance use it against her. Issei began to understand the situation, or at least a small part of it. Yes. But we were speaking about the ways to bring you back to life, Darien reminded him. So you can bring me back to life. Issei responded. I can. But the truth is, I am not the only one who could do this. There is someone else who is planning to do the same thing. You remember what I have told you about the devils? Darian, a cute accent asked him. You said that Rias Gremory senpai is one of them. He was still a bit unbelieving about the idea that one of the great Isamas of his own school should actually be some sort of demonic creature. She is, he answered. In fact, she is one of the two leading devils of this area. She, along with the one known as Sona Citri, has claimed this town as a cute accent territory. Her territory. Yes, without the consent or even the knowledge of most of the people who live here, of course. But that is a moral question for another time, he stated. She is the other person who is trying to revive you. I have however kept a hold to that for now. What? You mean you are actually keeping someone else from reviving me? Issei exclaimed in shock. Why in the world would you do that? As I told you, her acute accent comes with a high price. If a devil revives you, you become a devil yourself and automatically the servant of the one who did revive you in the first place, he explained to him. But it seems Rias Gremory had no intention to tell you that until afterwards, he commented. It was clear by his tone that he thought not very high about the devils and their methods. She would essentially made you her slave, and if you would ever try to leave her, the devils would hunt you down and kill you. She knew who Raynor was and what she was planning since the day she had first contacted and asked you out, and could have easily stopped her or warned you. But she decided to deliberately let you get killed so that she could force you to become part of her group of servants without having to ask you. So I interfered to give you an actual choice. After hearing this, Issei could only gulp again. He understood now that he meant when Darien said that there is more than just one group to look out for. For the moment I have moved you here, and this place is outside of your regular flow of time. That means we have time to talk. So that you can make your own decision. Now, are you finally ready to hear my offer? He asked him. Yes, I am Darien-sama, Issei replied. You don't have to call me that, he said. I am not your master unless you want me to be. And despite the power that I command, I don't consider myself above you or anyone else for that matter, he stated. Let me make one thing clear, if you want me to, I will bring you back to life anyway. No matter if you accept my offer or not. My help is not bound to such prices. Do you understand that? Why yes, Issei answered, still a bit insecure. And before you even ask that, the reason why I myself have not interfered and prevented your death is simple. As I told you, I am not truly here. I have great power, nearly unlimited by your standards, but even that is not enough to interfere physically when my actual self is several dimensions away. To that comes that for certain reasons the influence of my group in your home universe is somewhat limited. So all I was able to do was to summon your soul to this place. Issei at this point just accepted that piece of information. Okay, I understand, Issei replied. Well, at least this guy had an excuse for not keeping Yuma from killing him, he thought. Being in another universe actually sounded like a quite good one to him. The offer I want to give you is simple. Do you want to join our group? Join your group? Issei repeated, dumbfounded. Yes. We the Guardians are protecting all realities from threats, simply spoken a duty given to us by the force of creation that formed all universes. So that is God then? Issei questioned. Yes and no, he answered. The entity that is in your world known as God is actually a small part of this force that was separated from the whole to watch over your home universe. My power is in fact far above the God of your world. But it is still nothing compared to his true self that exists in all universes. That is actually connected to the reason why our influence in your world is limited. But that is again a tale for another time. What you should know for now is this: yes, we are protectors of this world like any other, and we are at war. There exists as an organization no a force at the other end of the spectrum. They are the true reason our group was formed a long time ago. To counter the threat that they present. Their goals are in some sense the complete opposite to ours. They want to reform acute accent the entire multiverse by destroying everything that is flawed, failed or unworthy in their eyes or just standing in their way. That means people, states, worlds, even entire universes, all is to be destroyed if it doesn't meet their standards. This is actually yet another reason why I couldn't help you in person. I am currently involved in a campaign in another universe. The war between our two sides has been going on for thousands of years. It makes the so-called Great War between the three factions look like a small-scale banter. And you want me to become part of that? Issei called out in absolute shock and horror. Don't misunderstand me. I don't want you to join this war, at least not yet. Not for a long time. What I offer you is this: fulfill one mission for us, or maybe two if you cannot make up your mind. It won't be anything too dangerous, only dealing with minor threats for now. In exchange we will train you and help you to realize the power of your sacred gear. One job, an easy one, that is all we ask from you, and then we will properly train you and show you everything you need to know to protect you from anyone who would try to take advantage of you. After this one job you can then decide if you want to stay with us or not. Issei had to admit it sounded better than anything else he had heard so far. If you refuse, I will bring you back just like the way you are, Darian told him. But as I said, we are at war. You can understand that we simply don't have the time to train you if you don't do at least one task for us, he stated. Okay, he thought it over. I guess we can show you in any case the basics of your sacred gear's power, even if you say no. We will leave you to defend yourself. But we will not train you to your full abilities. For that you would have to find someone else. Your other options are to let the devil reincarnate you and willingly become her servant. But then you will automatically get involved into their conflict instead. Or you can choose death and move on to whatever afterlife the people of your home are being sent to. I advise you to take some time and think it over. What kind of job? Issei wanted to know. The job I want to give you is actually very close to home, he said. Answer me one question. If you had the chance, would you go after Rainer and Rias Gremory and kill them if I offered you the power to do it? Think about it, the one who had murdered you and the one who had set you up to die. Would you destroy any of their subordinates who had helped them in their schemes and is standing in your way? Think about it and answer me. Issei didn't say anything for a few moments. Anger flew through him. He didn't even know who he was more angry at, the one who had claimed to like him and then killed him without a second thought. Or the one who just sat back and let it happen without getting her hands dirty when she could easily have prevented it all. Yes, a part of him wanted nothing more than get his hands around their throats. But he suddenly saw their faces in his mind. No, Issei answered after a few moments. I want. Despite everything, I don't want either of them to die. Or at least I don't want to be the one to kill them. I am sorry. Why are you apologizing? You have passed the test, Darian told him. We want protectors after all, not murderers. Even if the difference between both is sometimes slim. Test. Hey, does that mean you have been screwing with me right now? Issei called out. A part of him could not believe how easily he was now chatting with a being that, by his own words, surpassed God. I admit I did, he replied. I needed to know how you truly feel, and just scanning the surface of your mind is not enough. The true job is this. We want you to keep an eye on Rainer, the one you know as Yuma Mono. Find out everything you can about what she is doing. We suspect that she will soon target another sacred gear user. Do everything to protect this person from her or from others. We have reason to believe that there is someone else pulling the strings behind her actions, an organization that could become a greater threat in the near future. Disrupt her plans and interfere with her actions wherever you can, keep a hold on whatever she is doing. But don't kill her or anybody else for that matter if it can be in any way avoided. We are not after Rainer, we want to find and expose whoever is hiding behind her. Moment, Issei said, you want me to go pestering Yuma? A grin began to form on his face. I knew you would like that part, he responded. If you want to call it that, then yes. Make her life harder, annoy her as much as you want, make sure her plans fail completely. But you don't want me to kill her? As I said, this is a low-threat mission, by our standards, so it should not be necessary to kill anyone. We are looking for information. You know something? Issei said to him. You have a deal. Are you sure? He asked him. Well, from all possibilities your offer sounds like the best one. And I am certainly not willing to die yet. As you wish. There is however one last thing you should know. When I return you to life, a small part of my energy will remain inside you. For me this doesn't mean much. The little bit of energy spent will restore itself quickly. But you will be different. This is a universal law that cannot be changed. Whenever a person is reincarnated, at least a small part of the force that reincarnated it stays inside this person. No matter what method is used, you will still be human. But you will be stronger than before, have access to abilities and power that no regular acute accent human would possess. Well, this is a good thing, isn't it? If in your situation it is, yes. I only wanted you to understand that even I can't bring you back exactly like you have been before. It doesn't matter. With this sacred gear thing inside me I was never completely normal anyway, and more power sounds very good actually. I see. Since you have accepted, I will send you back now. When you have arrived, one of our agents in your world who is already somewhere in your town will contact you to give you more exact instructions and train you. For this I will plant a telepathic signal in your mind that she will be able to sense. So she will find you quickly and will remove it then later. She? Issei asked hopefully. I know exactly what you are thinking, he responded sternly. Yes, she is attractive and you will have to talk with her about this topic. Okay, he grinned. I will send you back now. We will see each other again in the future, Issei Hyoudou. Darian lifted one hand and pointed at him, and once again the world around Issei started to change. Issei awoke. He saw that he was still lying next to the fountain. The wound that killed him, however, was gone. He decided not to stay here any longer and forced himself to stand up. He tried to bring some distance between himself and the place he had died. Right now he truly didn't want to meet any fallen angel or devil, at least for today. But somehow his legs just didn't want to work correctly. Of course, he had just been dead. What did he expect? After a few hundred meters, he broke down again. He was lying there for maybe a minute. Then he heard someone coming. It seems I have found you faster when I have thought, a voice spoke. So you are the new recruit the boss has told me to find. Issei realized that his worry was needless. This was obviously the agent that was sent for him. As he looked up he saw a young girl. She had brown hair that fell over her shoulders and was wearing black jeans and a light gray blouse and a black jacket, matching her pants, above it. You are the Guardian looking for me, he said. Yes I am, and what is your name? She asked him. He saw that she also had a great pair of eyes. Yes, Issei thought, he truly was back. Issei and the girl he had just met had now left the city park. Or better said, she had been literally dragging him around since he was still in a bad condition. The problem was she couldn't figure out the reason for that. The reincarnation should have brought him back in perfect physical shape. So the problem had to lie somewhere else. It was probably that his body just needed time to adjust to the change that happened to it. Yes, that had to be it. Now they were both standing together in a hotel room a few miles away where she had brought him. Issei was in the moment sitting at the side of the bed where she had laid him down when they arrived. She was standing right in front of him, trying to make out what was wrong with him. Issei at the same time, at some level, realized mostly one thing: he was here, alone in a hotel room, with a girl. He was suddenly feeling even more uneasy than before, and it had absolutely nothing to do with his physical health. My name is Gariel, by the way, she introduced herself. You're Issei, wasn't that what you said? Yes, Issei Hyoudou, he said with a grin. It was a grin that seemed and was a bit forced, thanks to him being nervous. I am looking out to getting to know you, she told him. It is not every day that the boss decides to recruit someone right away from death. This comment only caused him to blush. Obviously misunderstanding her intentions. I am glad to meet you too, he replied, stuttering. He was trying to look tough, but admittedly, he failed miserable. In the moment there was in first line one thought prominent in his head: he was alone with a girl in a hotel room. Good, I am glad that I have found you this quickly for my part, she responded. Especially since you are not feeling well. You can say that, Issei stated. But I guess I shouldn't complain, I have been dead after all. I see, she replied. Physically you should have been in perfect state though after your reincarnation. So it has to be something else. Suddenly she had another realization. Issei, tell me, are you carrying something on your body, something that doesn't belong to you? She asked him. What? He asked, his brain was still being rattled by his overall miserable state and by his own lascivious thoughts that were coming to him. These devils were trying to reincarnate you, right? She questioned. I just asked myself how they were even intending to find you in time to do that. The park is big and the entire town is even bigger, and they couldn't have followed you that close without the fallen angel noticing. Do you have something with you that doesn't belong to you? Yes, he answered and took out the flyer he had been given earlier, showing it to her. Someone gave me this before my date with Yuma. She took the piece of paper and took a short look at it. Interesting, you said they gave you this before your date with the fallen directly before? She questioned. Yes, he replied. As I thought, she said, this is a summoning card. A nice trick, you have to give that to these devils. When you had been lying there dying and wished to stay alive, you would have activated this. Or if you had been just carrying around and thought of Rias Gremory, for whatever reason, she would have your exact location and could have appeared right next to you. Wherever you currently are. You mean, everywhere? Even here at my home. Yes, even in your own house. Nasty little buggers these devils are, kind of like doorstep salesmen, she commented. You just can't get rid of them. Not here though, since my apartment is protected. Ironically, a day ago he would have cheered at the thought that a girl like Rias suddenly showing up at his home. But now, knowing what she was and that she had plans for him, it was completely different. Another part of him was actually tempted to laugh about Gabriel's snide remark. Okay, let us deal with that first, she stated. I have an idea about what could be the reason. Can I take a quick look at you? Oh, of course, he answered, now even more riled up. Once again obviously, or this time maybe rather WILLFULLY, a cute accent misinterpreting her intentions. Okay, I have some idea what might have caused your current state, she said, taking one step closer to him. But for that I need to take a closer look at your mental and physical. Hey, are you listening? She asked him. Issei was deep red in the face. She suddenly realized that he wasn't listening to what she was saying at all. Instead he was staring right at her chest and that his hands were halfway outstretched in exactly that direction. Hey, what do you think you are doing? She yelled at him now. This seemed to have brought him back to reality. So you're that kind of guy, she remarked. For a moment he thought she would actually punch him. But she got a hold on herself. Okay, you were chosen. So there is obviously something to you beside that, she stated seriously, but still visibly annoyed. And obviously slightly frustrated that she had just now realized that the boy in front of her was a pervert. Issei, she finally said, could you please stop thinking about my boobs for 5 minutes and listen to me? She told him. Okay. I think the reason you are feeling unwell is the change in your body after your resurrection and that the new powers you are developing because of it are not getting along with the ones that come from your sacred gear, she explained. But I think I can help you synchronize both energies. It will be quite quick actually. Really? Yes, but she answered. Issei, I will have to show you something and you must promise me that you do anything to keep a hold on yourself to stay calm. What? What do you mean? Issei asked her. You should know, I have telepathic abilities, she told him. Well, you will have probably two now. Since it was Darien who had revived you and he is one of the most powerful telepaths in all known universes. What I want to try is to transfer information directly into your mind. Really? Issei said stunned. You can do something like that? You know, maybe I could use that for school. That could be really useful. He chuckled a bit, trying to be funny, but not quite succeeding given the situation. I can. But it is not easy. The process costs a lot of energy, and I think I will only be able to do it when I am in my natural form, but… Natural form? You mean, you are normally not really looking on like that? Issei asked, trying not to get his hopes crushed. I certainly do look like this, Gabriel responded, now slightly annoyed. It is just… my true form might shock you. You have to remember, I am not gonna hurt you, no matter what I look like. Once again Issei was surprised how easily he seemed to get along with a clearly supernatural being. This one here a hot girl on top of that. Oh come on, he said to her, it can't be that bad, right? He was laughing once again, this time less forced. If you are still looking like this. Yes, my boobs are the same, a bit bigger actually, she replied, now with a grin on her face herself. Now, show me. Okay, but don't say I didn't warn you. With this word she began to transform. Her casual clothes were replaced with something that looked like a black-colored combat dress, and without a warning 2 pairs of black-colored feathered wings were ripping out of her back. Yes, Issei thought it wouldn't frighten him, whatever she was. Now he realized he had been wrong. His entire body froze. He could only stare at the girl before him. Only one sentence was once again hulling through his mind. Will you die for me? He heard back quote Y-U-U-M-A, a cute accent saying. He saw into Gabriel's eyes, trying to ignore the black wings on her back, he should have suspected it sooner, he realized. Her eyes, they were violet, in a similar shade as Yuma's. At another part of the town 2 other high school students were currently spending some of their own time. This 2 were Issei's 2 best friends Motohama and Mitsuda. Both of them were from a similar mindset as Issei himself, and like he openly admitted it, that gave them under the students the nickname "The Perverted Trio." They had just left the game arcade. Mitsuda was just mentioning a new porn DVD he had bought yesterday, not hentai anime for once, but real porn. Then they were suddenly interrupted. Hey boys, I have been looking for you, a quite obviously female voice addressed them. They turned around, with a bit stunned expressions as they saw her. A girl as attractive as her calling to them on the streets or even talking to them wasn't something what happened to them usually. She had long dark hair, a beautiful face and a nice more than nice figure, as they saw in bright, kind of violet-colored, eyes. Both of them could literally feel their jaws hanging open. Then they suddenly recognized her with some clear disappointment. "Wait, you're Issei's girlfriend, aren't you?" Motohama stated. "Yuma, was it?" "Yes, that's right. It is nice that you remember me," she told them sweetly. "But sadly you won't be for much longer." Before either of them could even ask her what she meant with that, they were both suddenly feeling dizzy by looking in her eyes. And then, a few moments later, they had forgotten that she had ever existed. This was it, the fallen angel, Rainer thought to herself. With erasing the memories of these two perverts, the last ties between her and Issei Hyoudou were cut. All in all, she was happy that she had it behind her. Now that this obstacle was out of her way, she could continue to follow her real plan. She remembered a human teenage boy who had showered her with all kinds of affection in his own naive way and nearly instantly angrily suppressed it. Was she really that starved for attention? She asked herself. It didn't matter. In a few days she would have the key to everything she ever wished for, and then she could happily forget everything what happened in this town. Issei could still only stare at the girl before him and her black wings. "You are just like Yuma," he stammered, still in shock about seeing her like this. "A bit, yes," she admitted. "Another fallen angel," he exclaimed. "Technically I am an angel, at least in some sense. I didn't fall in the regular way. And I wasn't born a fallen. You know, the one physical difference between an angel and a fallen angel is the divine protection that we," she corrected herself, "lack. Normally lost through sinful thoughts or actions," she explained. "I have given it up by myself. It was more practical that way." He was just coming to terms with the revelation what she was, but couldn't help to still feel worry of her. "Moment, you mean you have caused yourself to fall?" he asked her. "Why would you do that? I am a secret agent, you know. It is much more easy to infiltrate sinister organizations that are terrorizing the world if you don't radiate an aura of peace and love wherever you go," she commented. Issei looked at her dumbfounded about this crazy sounding, yet completely logical explanation. "Look," she continued, "I don't want to scare you, Issei. I know the last fallen angel you met had stabbed you, but just because I have black wings on my back doesn't mean I am going to hurt you. Okay? Okay," he just repeated. "I will begin now," she said and reached out to him with one hand. Issei could feel something. It was like fingers reaching into his mind. But not painful like you could imagine, just weird. Then he suddenly felt as if he were in a different place and time. He could see pictures, hear people talk, but his conscious mind didn't seem to know what to make out of it. It was all muddy confused. "Are you feeling better?" he heard her asking a short time later. If he was honest, Issei wasn't even sure how much time exactly had passed. 1 minute, 2. He had pretty much been out of it. To his surprise, however, he realized that he suddenly had a basic understanding of energy manipulation. Well, very basic. He knew how supernatural energies worked and was able to sense them. Issei could feel both sources of energy inside of him and was able to regulate them just good enough to keep them from hampering each other or from harming his body in the process. "Yes," he answered, "I do feel better." "Good," she said. "If that is all, I will bring you home now. Then I will now start warding your house in case your SCHOOL mate Rias decides to show up here, or maybe that your girlfriend finds out that you are still alive," she told him. "Okay," he answered. Still feeling a bit weirded out by all of this. "So you are the supernatural version of James Bond with boobs," he heard himself saying. She only stared at him for a few moments as she heard his comment before she broke out into howling laughter. "Yes, that is one way to put it," she finally said, between giggles. "You really are something, Issei Hyoudou." There was, however, something else she had noticed. The energy irradiated by his sacred gear, it was not only extraordinary high, it was a very specific sort of energy, that of a dragon. There were a handful of sacred gears that they're based on draconic power, as she knew, and only a few with this kind of power. And for even less of them were the whereabouts unaccounted for, the so-called boosted gear, the device where the red Welsh dragon was sealed into. But there was only one way to be sure. "Issei, can you activate your sacred gear?" she asked him. "You just need to concentrate. It should be quite easy, nearly like a reflex if you know how exactly to do it. Normally you should be able to figure it out by trying it by trial and error a few times. But it should already be part of the information that I just transferred into your head. So just try concentrating. And not to think of my breasts for a few minutes," she added. Issei did what she told him. He even ignored her glorious figure right in front of him. After a few seconds, a strange red-colored device that he had never seen before manifested itself on his arm. "That is it?" he asked. Ariel was focusing her mind on the sacred gear that had just appeared. On the first glance it had the look and also the readings of a normal twice critical. But she knew a few other ways to detect energies than any regular fallen angel would. She could see the enormous power hiding behind it. "Yes, that is it," she said. "Congratulations, you are carrying the boosted gear, one of the strongest sacred gears in existence." "Boosted gear? I will explain it to you. But I think we should leave it for today. You look as if you are already ready to fall asleep and you have probably heard more than enough about the supernatural for one day. Yes, you can say that, he responded. I will bring you home now. There is something else, I think you shouldn't go to school tomorrow. Not as long as you can't control your power and are vulnerable like this. When the devils find out that you are alive, they will without a doubt want to interrogate you, and like you are now, they will probably squeeze every bit of information out of you that you have. Hey, he called out. Sorry, but that's how it is, she replied. You can't even hide your power or shield your mind unless you might be able to do it instinctively. Actually, this will be under the first things I teach you. We will spend the next day training and learning. Just tell your parents that you are sick. Given your condition a few minutes ago, that would not even be a lie. But if I tell them I am sick, how will we explain being out the entire day? He questioned. Leave that to me, she told him, smiling. Guo Academy, the occult research club. All in all, Rias Gremory was not really having a good day. Not that there was any danger or even serious problems for her. It was simply that things were not going as she had planned by far. And that made her feel uneasy, at least in this case. But it was not only that. Something strange was going on here, she knew it. Have you found out something? She asked her Queen Akeno, aka her strongest servant, who had just entered the room. Officially both of them were third-year students of Kuo Academy, 1 year higher than Issei. In truth they were both high-class devils, and Rias for her part was a pure blood, a born devil, and the heir of one of the most powerful families, the sister of one of the devil kings, and one of the 2 devils who laid claim to the territory of Kuo. Sorry Rias, we have been searching the entire district for him, Akeno answered. Or maybe I should say for his body fufu, she added. The sound of her voice and the grin on her face hinted that she was actually holding back a light laughter at her last comment. For some reason this callous behavior infuriated Rias. Akeno. She exclaimed angrily, that is nothing to make fun about. He could be dead. The plan in question was in this case the recruitment of a sacred gear user, none other than Issei Hyoudou, who had now vanished from their sight. What I am here but you, Akeno responded, pronouncing her title, is being honest. Her behavior as well made suddenly a 180-degree turn, and she was now dead serious. You knew the risk, but you still insisted that we do it this way. There was never a guarantee that Issei wouldn't just throw the flyer into the next trash can. But you were worried about his safety, you should have thought about it earlier. But that is not what happened. The card was clearly being activated for a moment at least, but then something cut it off, Rias explained. That wasn't my point, Akeno retorted, visibly irritated. There had been a dozen things that could go wrong and he would die for good. And now you suddenly act all worried about him. You could have just asked him, you know. It was easier this way. Easier for who exactly? Akeno questioned. It was not usual for this two to have a dispute like this. Despite being master and subordinate, they were the best friends. But since Issei Hyoudou had disappeared on them, she had developed a protective streak about their younger fellow student. Now that it was probably too late to make a difference, a cynical part of Rias thought. If I remember right, you went along with it, she told her. If you had problems with my plan you could have mentioned it a few days ago. Akeno had to admit she didn't have anything to answer to that. Rias was right at least in this point. If she had any problem with that crazy plan of hers, she should have made her position clear far earlier before this had happened. We will continue to look for him, she stated. But if we don't find him, we must go by the idea that the fallen angel had probably fulfilled her mission. I know, Rias said. The next day, Issei and Gariel were standing in front of each other. They were a few miles outside of the town border, outside of the devil's or the fallen angel's reach. Both of them were not keeping an eye off each other, both of them were wearing dark-colored combat clothes and holding swords in their hands. Gariel had shown up once again this morning and transported them here. His parents thought he was going to school. Actually, he had told his mother at first that he was not feeling well and asked her to write an apology letter for school. A short time later Gariel appeared, claiming to be a fellow student, and made her forget that she had ever written the letter. Then she transported them here and they started their training. In the beginning she had first let him run a few rounds around the place while carrying a weighted backpack. To be honest, he hadn't thought that he would be able to carry this even for 100 meters, but as it looked he had grown stronger through his reincarnation. Raising up your stamina is one of the keys to control your sacred gear, she had told him. The stronger you are physically, the longer you will be able to keep it activated. He saw that he meant as he first tried keeping it activated for a longer time and then nearly collapsed from exhaustion after a few minutes. What followed afterwards was some basic combat training. Gariel had brought the 2 blades along since she wanted to teach him at least a few lessons in the use of weapons. Then followed by basic energy manipulation. One lesson of course how to conceal your presence from others, as she had promised. Then followed by another round of keeping your sacred gear activated for as long as possible. This time with getting involved in hand-to-hand combat at the same time. Beside that she had also explained the ground principles of telepathy to him. The more advanced stuff in all areas, as she told him, would follow later. With Gariel's ability to transfer raw information directly into his mind, he was learning incredibly fast. It was however a question of his own mind really understanding and mastering these skills. There was a difference of knowing acute accent how to do something and truly knowing it. And there was of course the question of his body needing to keep up with the knowledge. Gariel had however also told him that she would do this only a few times in the best case, something about it being too risky otherwise. By now it was already getting late afternoon. He had spent the greatest part of the day training. In between they had taken several long breaks, a few of them of nearly 1 hour. But Issei was still feeling exhausted like never before in his life. "I knew it, you are also trying to kill me," he actually said to her as a joke at one point as he was sweating under another round of endurance workout. "I actually might if you don't try harder," she responded. Also obviously making fun. The breaks they had used for several verbal lessons. Like the history of his sacred gear, the fact that it actually had a dragon sealed inside a fucking dragon, the basic lines how it worked. Then a more detailed version of the history of the Guardians, along with some information about the universe where their organization was founded. Some facts about the group who seemed to be their main enemy and had their roots in the same universe like them. Then came more history of the 3 factions and the Great War and similar things. "So you are telling me that this dragon Drake is actually living inside me?" He wanted to clarify once again. "In a sense, through the boosted gear, he is at the very least bonded to your soul. And he is more powerful than a god. Yes, more powerful than most of them in this universe at least. But that doesn't mean that you are Issei. I have explained to you how it works. For now, you can only draw small amounts of power from it until you learn how to draw more and be strong enough to hold it with your body." "Yes, for now it just doubles my power every 10 seconds, he replied. "Very soon you will probably be able to draw more boosts at will and maybe even unlock the higher powers of the gear," she told him. "Will I then also be able to do such incredible things like creating a dimension out of thin air or conjuring souls from other universes?" he asked. She grinned. "Maybe not exactly that, but you will have incredible powers," she stated. "But I will hardly be the one to teach you all that. Despite that you may think of me, I am not a cosmic level powerhouse like our leaders. I am just a regular field agent and just a little bit stronger than a normal fallen angel of my level. The Guardians had just showed me a few tricks that I learned. And I am not that long in the organization myself," she explained. "If I am honest, if it had not been for them, I would have probably fallen anyway, in the regular way. Would you then also have such a bitch like you, Uma?" The question had slipped through his lips before he noticed the sad look on her face as she said this. In the next moment he wanted to kick himself. "Believe me, being a fallen angel is not easy," she answered. "I might have been worse." "Then I am truly glad that you met them," he said. "So am I. You truly want to return to school tomorrow?" she asked him. "Yes. I guess I just don't want to miss everything because of this." "You are deeper than someone would first think if only you want to," she commented. "Well, I think you can go now. I have thought you just enough that no devil will take easy advantage of you." Guo Academy, the following morning, Issei was standing one again in front of his school. This time however he was visible nervous. This had to be a first, he thought actually afraid to go to school. But normally you also wouldn't have to deal with a bunch of devils who were trying to recruit acute accent you and were now probably going to at the very least ask you a lot of questions. Questions he certainly didn't want to answer and that certainly weren't their business in the first place. "Hyoudou, are you okay?" he heard someone asking him. Hello Murayama," he greeted her as he recognized one of his classmates. One who was the captain of the kendo club who he had been caught peeking on 2 days ago. "On top of that, I have noticed that you were missing yesterday," she told him, "and now I have seen you just standing here for nearly a minute. Are you alright? I mean, you weren't missing yesterday because we had beaten you up too badly, weren't you?" "What?" He was a bit dumbfounded by this strange apology. He remembered the trashing he got from the entire kendo club after they got him, and sympathy from Murayama was about the last thing he had expected. No, he replied, "I was just sick yesterday. You had nothing to do with it. But thanks for your concern," he stated honestly. "Okay, then I guess I will see you in class Hyoudou," she said and turned to leave. "Wait," he told her. "I wanted to say I am sorry for peeking on you this last time. I will try to tone it down in the future. Since I have tons of other things to worry about now," he thought silently. "But I can't promise to leave it out completely because you are just too pretty." What the hell? Why have I just said this, he thought. Now it was her turn to look at him with an open mouth. For a short moment she actually seemed to be blushing. "You know something Hyoudou, maybe you would actually have more luck with the girls if you were a bit more like this more often," she told him before leaving for class. Leaving Issei with a few things to think about. The Occult Research Club. A short time later, Haneko came suddenly running into the room. She was actually too late for her first class this day, but this here was more important. Issei Hyoudou, she told them, he is back. I have just seen him in the corridor on the way to his class. Rias and Akeno were looking at each other in surprise. They had already been so far to consider him dead after they hadn't found him and he had not appeared yesterday. And secretly they had already been waiting for the police to find his body somewhere or for his parents to declare him missing. What in the world has happened? I think we should talk to him as soon as possible, Rias stated. A few hours later, Issei was walking through the streets on his way home. Then he would meet with Gariel again a short time afterwards for some more training. He was still thinking about the conversation he had with the devils a few hours before and the one with Murayama before that one and about all what happened during the last 2 days. As he had seen Mitsuda and Motohama at school, he had brought up Yuma without telling them that she was his girlfriend however, as Gariel suggested. As if she was only a girl he had met. Just as she had predicted, they could not remember her. Then Hyoudou of all people, probably the most popular male student at least under the girls, had appeared in Issei's class and invited him to a meeting with the occult research club, which as he knew now was probably just a cover for Rias Gremory's devil peerage. Hyoudou was a devil as well, he could feel it. He was someone Issei, along with his 2 friends, had hated out of principle alone 2 days ago, called the Prince of the school, swarmed and admired by nearly all girls. Yes, exactly the kind of guy the Issei from 2 days ago would have despised. Now he wasn't so sure what to think of him. He had accepted the invitation. There was hardly a way to avoid them for long. So he could also bring it behind him. What followed was the interrogation session that Rias Gremory called a conversation. Ariel had been right. He would have been screwed if he came here yesterday. But such things in mind Issei was walking along the streets. Until he suddenly sensed something. Another presence was here. It didn't feel like a fallen angel or the devils, but somehow different. He couldn't quite place it. As he looked around he saw the source. It was a young girl, sitting on a bench at the side of the sidewalk. She had long blonde hair. She was really cute actually, he thought, and was wearing a nun outfit. A nun? He asked himself. Oh excuse me, she asked as she saw Issei looking at her, could you please tell me how I can get to the church? Issei didn't understand the language she was speaking. Has she arrived yet? Rainer asked. No, the other fallen angel, a tall blue-haired woman, next to her answered. Who exactly was this sacred gear user again? They were both standing at the area surrounding the abandoned church that served them as their local base. Asia Argento, an excommunicated nun and the wielder of the Twilight Healing, Rainer answered. Lord Kakabiel had arranged for her to be placed under our care. And the other guy we are waiting for? Fried Selzen, stray exorcist, a complete lunatic going by his records. But he had been assigned to watch over her. Yet for some reason that idiot had insisted that they travel apart from each other, Rainer cursed, and now she had gotten lost on us. Go look for her Kaloriner and bring her here. Okay Rainer, she answered, while spreading her wings and flying off. End of the here. So that's it for today's video guys. Before you go, just like the video and share it with your friends. Bye.